live in interesting times. Today's stories. In Chile, there is a red alert and over 150 houses are destroyed by fires in Valparaiso. Syrians flee Idlib towns following an uptick in bombardment. In Hong Kong, riot police and protesters clash outside a shopping mall. Erdogan visits Tunisia amid Libya tensions. Yemeni patients recover in a hospital after a swine flu outbreak. Ballet dancers protest French pension reform on the steps of Opera Garnier. In Afghanistan, meet a family of amputees and learn how they are surviving loss. Plus, for EBC Sports, the Raptors earn victory over the Cavaliers and score a win with Filipino fans. This is Eagle News coming to you from Las Vegas, bringing you stories from around the globe. I'm Anna Kui. Some 150 houses have been destroyed, nearly 2,000 people are without electricity, and 12 firefighters have been injured in an ongoing voracious forest fire that affects the tourist Chilean port of Valparaiso.
No alcancé a sacar los puros animales, no, los puros animalitos y una tele y los demás no pude más porque los carabineros me sacaron porque ya no se puede hacer nada.
Syrians in Mar Shirin and Maret al-Numan continue to flee in vehicles filled with their belongings after an uptick in violence as regime forces make steady advances on the ground, despite an August ceasefire and UN calls for a de-escalation.
نحن أسود معرض النعمان صامدين بإذن الله غصب عن طغاة والبغاة وغصب عن روسيا وإيران وعصابة المجرم بشار وغصب عن روح حافظ بقبره صامدين بهاي البلد ما بنطلع ولا بنتزحزح. إذا رحنا استشهدنا ورحنا في سبيل الله في عنا أطفال تدافع عن الأرض، في عنا نساء إذا ما ضل أطفال عنا نساء تدافع عن الأرض. هاي الأرض كالعرض وبإذن الله ما بنتخلى عنها لآخر قطرة دم في دمنا.
At least 8 people, including 5 children, were killed Tuesday in Russian airstrikes on northwest Syria as France and Turkey appealed for an end to violence that has forced tens of thousands to flee. Heightened regime and Russian bombardment has hit the jihadist-held province of Idlib since mid-December, as regime forces make steady advances on the ground despite an August ceasefire and UN calls for a de-escalation. According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which estimates that more than 40,000 people have been displaced in recent weeks, nearly 80 civilians have been killed by airstrikes and artillery attacks over the same period. Turkey said Tuesday, after sending a delegation to Moscow to discuss the flare-up, quote, "These attacks should come to an end immediately." Presidential spokesman Ibrahim Kalin said Ankara was pressing for a new ceasefire to replace the August agreement. The French Foreign Ministry called for, quote, "an immediate de-escalation." It said in a statement, quote, "The military offensive by the Damascus regime and its allies is worsening the humanitarian crisis in Idlib." Tuesday's strikes targeted the village of Jubas near the town of Sarakeb in southern Idlib, killing civilians sheltering in a school and nearby, said the Britain-based observatory, which has a network of contacts across Syria. The United Nations Children's Agency UNICEF on Tuesday condemned the violence in Syria's last major opposition bastion. It said in a statement, quote, "Children are bearing the brunt of intensifying violence in northwest Syria." The escalation came as Damascus loyalists advanced on the ground. Since Thursday, regime forces have taken control of dozens of towns and villages in southern Idlib following battles with jihadists. According to the observatory, the clashes have killed 260 fighters on both sides. Observatory Chief Rami Abdel Rahman said regime forces are now less than 4 kilometers or 2 miles from the strategic city of Marat al-Numan. In a statement on Tuesday, the Syrian army said it has seized 320 square kilometers or 123 square miles from its rivals in recent days. It pledged to continue its push until it recaptures all of Idlib, calling on civilians to exit areas under jihadist control. But fearing further regime advances from the south, thousands of Marat al-Numan's residents have fled northwards towards the Turkish border. Hong Kong's holiday celebrations were marred by sporadic clashes between police and pro-democracy activists on Wednesday, as the city's pro-Beijing leader said the season was being ruined by demonstrators. Police used pepper spray and tear gas as activists held small flash mob protests in malls in multiple districts across the city. Reports say in Mong Kok, an area that has seen frequent clashes over the last 6 months, police fired multiple rounds of tear gas to disperse crowds that were heckling officers. Pepper spray was also used in at least 2 malls as police and protesters clashed. According to live local TV broadcasts, multiple young protesters were detained, some by plainclothes police who had mixed with the crowds. Wednesday's skirmishes were less sustained than those on December 24, when battles between democracy activists and riot police swept through a major shopping district for hours. That evening's unrest was the most serious in what has otherwise been a few weeks of comparative calm for a city upended by more than 6 months of often violent protests. Police used tear gas, rubber bullets, and pepper spray on Tuesday in multiple locations, while protesters responded with throwing sporadic petrol bombs, blocking roads, and vandalizing businesses deemed to be sympathetic to the government. Hong Kong's pro-Beijing leader Carrie Lam on Wednesday condemned the protesters on Facebook, describing them as, quote, reckless and selfish rioters. Such illegal acts have not only dampened the festive mood, but also adversely affected local businesses. But protesters remain defiant. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan met his counterpart in Tunisia on Wednesday to discuss the conflict in neighboring Libya, whose UN-recognized unity government has signed a military deal with Ankara.
Tabii bizim Libya'da bir an evvel ateşkesin sağlanarak siyasi sürece dönülebilmesi amacıyla atabileceğimiz adımlarla bu çerçevede yürütebileceğimiz işbirliği neler olabilir? Bunların üzerinde durma fırsatımız oldu.
The Turkish parliament on Saturday ratified a security and military cooperation deal that was signed with the Tripoli-based Government of National Accord, or GNA, last month. Erdogan has vowed to increase military support to the GNA if needed, as it battles eastern Libya strongman Khalifa Haftar's months-long offensive to seize the capital.
Yani Libya'daki bu olumsuz gelişmeler sadece Libya'da kalmıyor. Aynı zamanda komşu ülkeler ki başta Tunus buradan ciddi manada rahatsız oluyor. Türkiye ise böyle bir daveti aldığı zaman davete icabet de eder. Niye? Aramızda en azından bir mutabakat metni var.
Tunisia shares a long border with Libya, and thousands of Libyans have sought refuge on Tunisian soil since the 2011 NATO-backed uprising, which toppled the regime of longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi. The conflict plunged Libya into violence, and 8 years later, pro-GNA militias and Haftar's self-styled Libyan National Army are vying for control of the North African country. While Turkey and Qatar back the GNA, Haftar has received support from neighboring Egypt, the United Arab Emirates, and Russia, all of whom have tense relations with Turkey. Moscow last month denied reports in the New York Times that it had sent mercenaries to fight on Haftar's side, while the UN has also accused the strongman's forces of recruiting fighters from Sudan. Ankara has received international criticism for its deal with the GNA and a separate maritime jurisdiction agreement also signed in November. Part of the deal sets a maritime boundary between the two countries, which Greece says does not take into account the island of Crete, at a time when several regional players hope to exploit Mediterranean gas reserves. Up next, Yemeni patients recover in a hospital after a swine flu outbreak. Ballet dancers protest French pension reform on the steps of Opera Garnier. In Afghanistan, meet a family of amputees and learn how they are surviving loss. Plus, for EBC Sports, the Raptors earn victory over the Cavaliers and score a win with Filipino fans. Eagle News will be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Eagle News coming to you from Las Vegas. I'm Anna Kui. Yemeni patients recover in a hospital in the capital Sana'a after a swine flu outbreak. The Houthi-run health ministry began setting up isolation rooms to face the epidemic that swept the country.
سنة بعدها مركز صحي عالجنا في شوية ما صحش سمع ونقدر تعبي استلسانا في الدار هنا من بعد جينا هكذا رأسا فالعناية حق الجمهوري من هي جلسنا لنا حوالي 5 أيام في العناية لحد حسنا الحمد لله رب العالمين.
الحالات تتزايد لدينا تقريبا خلال الموسم هذا اللي هو شهر نوفمبر وديسمبر ما يسوى على 1600 حالة إصابة واشتباه إصابة. توفي منها حتى هذه اللحظة ما يقارب 54 حالة. بعضها تم فحصها واكتشف على أنها H1N1. الحالات متواجدة، الحالات متزايدة للأسف الشديد رغم التحرك الكبير جدا من وزارة الصحة في توفير الأدوية المجانية في توفير المحاليل.
On the steps of Opera Garnier in Paris, dancers perform a piece from Swan Lake to protest against the French government's pension reform. The dancers refuse to see their special pension scheme, which allows them to retire at the age of 42, disappear.
D'exemple, moi je suis rentrée à l'école de danse de l'Opéra de Paris à l'âge de 8 ans. Et pour ça, j'ai quitté ma famille, j'ai aménagé une scolarité et à partir de cet âge-là, ce sera minimum de 5 heures de danse par jour. Donc un sport intensif très vite. Une formation à l'école de danse de l'Opéra, ça dure 9 ans. Et à 17-18 ans, on est nombreux à avoir déjà des blessures chroniques, des tendinites, des fractures de fatigue au méta pour les filles, des douleurs aux genoux de croissance chez les garçons. Enfin.
Tout dépend. Là, ce qu'elles vous ont montré les filles sur le lac des Cygnes, c'est 15 ans de sacrifice, c'est du travail quotidien, c'est tous les jours, tous les matins. Et pour arriver à ça, il y a une limite, il y a un moyen, il y a une contrainte. Et si on veut continuer à avoir de jolies danseuses ou de jolis danseurs sur scène, on ne pourrait pas continuer jusqu'à 64 ans, c'est pas possible.
Last year, 10 children from an Afghan family picked up an unexploded mortar bomb, a common sight in Afghanistan. The deadly device went off, killing 3 children and an older relative. The remaining 7 lost at least 1 limb each. 1 year on, the survivors are struggling to adapt to their new reality. Here's the report.
دا ورځ چې په موږ تېره شوه دا ډېره بده ورځ وه. دا ورونه خویندې مې ټول په وینو پکې پټ وه او وینې پراتې وې چې مونږ غونډ فامیل پکې تباه شو.
مارمۍ چې وچاودېدله زه جګ شوم کور ته روان وم چې قدم مې واسطه ولیدم نور ما پسې خپه نه وه.
The children are tutored at home, but sometimes they have to go to school for exams. It's not an easy journey. Blisters develop when their artificial limbs rub against their skin, a painful reminder of their new reality.
زما زړه هپا دی زه نورو جنکیانو ته چې ګورم زړه مې هغه وي زه ما له څه ووایه زه نه تللی شم خو په لاره روان وي.
War still rages on here, even though the Taliban are in negotiations with the US for some sort of peace settlement. A resolution still seems far off. Decades of conflict have left the nation strewn with landmines and other deadly devices. The UN says More than 900 children were killed in 2018. Another 7,000 were wounded. And though hers was taken away, Rabia hopes other children in Afghanistan can still enjoy a normal childhood.
طالبان حکومت را ټول شي هغه سوله وکړي نور ماشومان شهید نشي خپې ته نه کټ نشي.
And now for EBC Sports. The love of basketball transcends countries and cultures. Last season, the Toronto Raptors became the first ever Canadian team to win the NBA title, resulting in a lot of Canadians falling in love with the sport. You know what? Filipinos also love basketball. And you know what else? There is a significant number of Filipinos living in Canada. Thus, as the Raptors took on the Cleveland Cavaliers, they also hosted the second annual Filipino Heritage Night at Scotiabank Arena. Sports correspondent Zarita Sese with the story.
Last Monday, the Toronto Raptors took on the Cleveland Cavaliers, a team they once had trouble overcoming in the playoffs. With the Raptors trying to bounce back from a bumpy 6-game stretch, a win over the struggling Cleveland squad is the kind of confidence that this team needed. Not only were the Raptors hosting the Cavs at home, but Monday night's game marks the second annual Filipino Heritage Night in collaboration with the nonprofit organization, the Rise Tribe. With the Filipino population continuing to rise in Canada, and especially in Toronto, the importance of an organization like the Rise Tribe is evident, a nonprofit organization founded by a group of young Filipino Canadians. They saw that even younger generations needed guidance when it came to their education and careers. Abby Albino is one of the co-founders who recognized the power that a sport like basketball has when reaching out to younger generations.
Playing in sport or being a part of a sports team, you are essentially part of a larger family. So the transition from being a kid who just was in a Filipino family to someone who's playing in sport actively, it was seamless. So yeah, for me, development in sport is really important. Again, it teaches you leadership, it teaches you all sorts of life skills.
Anyone who purchased Filipino Heritage Night tickets were also able to get their hands on an exclusive t-shirt, which is adorned with the Raptor. In addition to t-shirts, those who were able to purchase premium tickets were also treated with some surprises, like a visit from Bobby Webster, the general manager of the Toronto Raptors. Though Filipino communities in Toronto and in Canada as a whole have been present for years, there's a surge of younger Filipino Canadians who, with the help of organizations like the Rise Tribe, are seeing the possibilities that are available to them.
A lot of them just want to do what they love, and that's kind of our generation now. We kind of took it up on ourselves to really take somebody who wants to get into photography or wants to get into media and pair them up, or at least show them examples of successful Filipino Canadians in those spaces so that they can see that there is representation and that it is possible to achieve that.
By the end of the night, the fans were able to see their Toronto Raptors walk away with the win, defeating the Cavs by a score of 133-113. Philippines' own Jordan Clarkson of the Cavaliers finished the night with 9 points in 23 minutes. From the Scotiabank Arena, I'm Zarita Sese, Eagle News, 1/25.
Thanks, Zarita. That is today's Eagle News. Join us again tomorrow for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/eaglenews and on Facebook at facebook.com/eaglenews. Thank you for watching. I'm Anna Kui, 9/1/25.